En baie welkom by nog 'n Sakeliga gesprek. Vandag gesels ons natuurlik oor die kwessie van Eskom en ek praat met Russell Lamberti. Nou Russell is die uitvoerende direkteur vir navorsing en strategie hierso by Sakeliga. Russell het geskryf oor Eskom. Russell, welkom.
Dankie Gerard, dit is baie lekker om met jou te gesels.
Baie lekker om te gesels, Russell. Yeah, so Russell, you had a recent article about Eskom and the energy markets in South Africa and also the whole crisis around Eskom. Tell us a bit.
Thanks, Gerard. So the article takes the following structure. We essentially are arguing that Eskom, the Eskom system, the Eskom monopoly, is essentially beyond repair. We are now in a state of advanced capital decay. The grid is extremely vulnerable. And we also think that internal reform is all but impossible, either from the Eskom side or from the side of the state. It's clearly extremely difficult to reform Eskom, and attempts to reform Eskom are met with sabotage, extreme opposition from connected special interests within the Eskom supply system, labor unrest, and so on. So Eskom and the entire energy system that Eskom comprises is extremely vulnerable and extremely unlikely to be reformed voluntarily. The second point we make is that energy is a vital interest of society. It is an absolutely critical component of ordinary modern existence. And therefore, the third point that follows from these first 2 points is that energy independence is not going to be granted to us by the state, but it must in fact be claimed by us as a vital interest, a core, important and critical part of life must be taken back into our hands. We need to be producing, our highest energy priority is to produce enough of it, regardless of state policy. So that is what we're essentially arguing in this article, Gerard, that simply advocating for a free market and for deregulation is perhaps necessary, but it's not sufficient.
Yes, Russ, we'll look into that. But the issue of vital interest is quite important. In Afrikaans, we say lewensnoodsaaklike belange. So just to give you an idea about the importance of vital interests, and our energy is really important for our vital interests and for everyone in South Africa, essentially. So let's unpack the idea of vital interests a bit. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks, Gerard. I think very briefly, you've said it. Essentially, the Afrikaans translation of the word really brings it to the fore. We are talking about things that are essential for life, things that are essential for living. A vital interest is an interest that a society or a community has a right to defend because it goes to the core of what makes their life possible. What makes modern life possible and bearable is abundant and affordable energy and electricity. We have structured modern life around this, and without it, we go back hundreds or perhaps even thousands of years in terms of our development. It is absolutely a critical part of modern existence. This is not a controversial statement. So it's things that are essential for the social order and things that without which you really have an existential threat. The prospect of grid collapse, the prospect of years and years and years with very little energy, not enough energy, rolling blackouts, tremendous energy uncertainty is an existential problem for modern life and for the formation of orderly society in South Africa. So that's what we mean by vital interest, and it's very significant. It's not just that one has to wait, long in a queue, for example, in Home Affairs or something. That's an inconvenience. It's not necessarily a vital interest that you're trying to protect there, but keeping the lights on and having enough and having sufficient energy supply to produce, to keep hospitals running, to run your household, to run all the affairs of modern life is certainly a vital and important interest.
Yeah, Russell, just I'm thinking of one example. I recently had to fill a prescription, and of course it was load shedding at the pharmacy, and that essentially made it much more difficult for me to fill the prescription. Luckily I did, but I think if we compound this across the economy and not just in terms of consumers, but also in terms of production, one can see the impact of energy. But Russell, another point you make in the article is the point around energy independence and essentially taking back energy independence. What do we mean by that?
Gerard, I think for now we're thinking along the lines of three core things. Number one would be to ramp up advocacy and what we would call the moral argument. Producing enough energy is of critical importance. It's of vital importance, and it goes to the core of what makes life and society possible. So we need to ensure that the moral argument is made that stifling energy regulation is a harm on society and really an assault on life as we know it. So we have to make a strong moral argument and advocate in the public sphere and put public pressure on these very draconian regulations that we live under. We have an essential monopoly. We live under close to a full monopoly on energy that Eskom has. At the margins, they've allowed small amounts of energy to be produced. But even there, as they've raised the ceiling of what can be produced, we know that there's very bureaucratic and slow and often corrupt licensing processes, and things aren't really getting going how we need them to be getting going. So we have to make the moral argument in the public sphere. Number two, we have to explore all the constitutional, legal, and jurisprudential avenues that can make skirting these regulations possible. We have to look at areas of the law, loopholes in the law. We have to push into the gray areas of the law at both a national, provincial, and local level to discover new ways of exploiting what the law provides for us in terms of being able to actually get around these sorts of regulations. And then I think number three, we need to start thinking about what does a coordinated and orderly campaign of civil disobedience look like. We're no strangers in South Africa to civil disobedience. We had civil disobedience in the days of pre-1994. We've seen civil disobedience when it comes to things like e-tolls in Gauteng. And I think the idea that en masse and distributed across the country, you have thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of small-scale energy producers just starting to actually produce energy and sell it to people and figure out distribution solutions and allow that decentralized market to work. It's that kind of civil disobedience that we would like to encourage as well. So Sakeliga is developing a more comprehensive strategy around this, which we can get into. But those are the sort of three areas that I think we would be looking at.
Russell, thanks. To conclude, you now spoke about Sakeliga's strategy. Please tell our members and the public broadly, what are we looking at in terms of an energy strategy from Sakeliga's side? And if you have any final thoughts, please share them with us.
Thanks, Gerard. So look, very briefly, the first thing to say is that we are in the process of developing a strategy. We know for certain that what needs to be done is that we as civil society, as the private sector, need to start moving towards energy independence, regardless of what the state says about it. Now, if the government comes with a wholesale energy deregulation policy and it implements that policy, that's wonderful, that's good. But we are not relying on that, and we cannot be reliant on that. So we've got to move ahead. So in principle, that's the sort of direction that we are moving in. So we're developing an advocacy strategy in that direction. We're in the process of investigating constitutional and jurisprudential principles, reviewing energy regulation, scrutinizing the law, and looking to see what can be done. Number three, at local government jurisdictional level, exploring the possibilities for energy production by local governments, but also by private enterprises, and assessing the risks of embarking on a process like this that moves into a situation of open disobedience for clearly unjust and intolerable policies. So it's a process that we're embarking on, and over the next few months, we're going to develop this strategy, and as it develops, we will start implementing and unfolding what we're doing in the public domain. But the bottom line, Gerard, is that we are moving in a direction of advocating for claiming back energy independence. Anything short of that and anything relying on reform of the system is simply intolerable and is a major threat, as I say, to our vital interests. So it's a different mindset. It's not begging the state to fix the energy problem. It's saying to the state that we will fix the energy problem because it's in our vital interests and we are fully entitled to do so.
Hey, Russell, thanks for talking to us about your very important article, which I'll link to in the description of this video. And also then about the importance of energy policy and Sakeliga's strategy coming in the time that's coming. Russ, thanks for joining us today. I'm looking forward to our next discussion.
Thanks, Gerard. Thank you.